Although this vocalist enjoyed a period of solo success with his 70s soul smashes, this musician was a talented keyboardist, singer, and songwriter who was best known for his profound work as a sideman and collaborator throughout rock, R&B, soul, and gospel music. A self-taught child prodigy and a native of Houston, as a teenager in the late 50s and early 60s, he backed up major stars such as Little Richard, Sam Cooke, and later Ray Charles. The centerpiece of today's video is all about Billy Preston. Now before we start, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to be sure you won't miss out on any more content. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. Born William Everett Preston on September 2nd, 1946 in Houston, Texas. Growing up, his family moved to Los Angeles. Early on in his musical career, he proved to be a very good, talented, self-taught piano player and organ player. By the age of 11, he had already backed up gospel diva Mahalia Jackson, also singing on TV with Nat King Cole. In 1958, Preston was casted in the St. Louis Blues, the Hollywood biopic of W.C. Handy, playing a young Handy himself. Preston's musical tutelage continued with a teenage stint in Little Richard's band. It was on the European tour with Richard in Hamburg, Germany that he befriended the Beatles. In 1963, Preston was still in high school when Sam Cooke signed him to record his debut album called 16-Year-Old Soul. During the mid-60s, he became a regular on the popular TV series Shindig. Also around this time, he cut moderately successful records for VJ, Exodus, and Capitol Records. But it was his growing docket of session work that helped build his reputation within the industry. In January of 1969, Preston was in London playing with Ray Charles when George Harrison invited him to visit the Beatles' newly built Apple Records rehearsal space. The band was in the midst of their Let It Be sessions, and the keyboardist's nimble electric piano and organ parts proved to be the glue that helped seal up songs like Don't Let Me Down and Get Back. His effortless musicality and easygoing nature was widely appreciated by the band, but it was the fortuitous timing of his visit that allowed him to become part of history. Preston's contributions to the album were so significant that he became only the second artist to receive a joint credit on the Beatles single for Get Back, and he was immortalized on the film playing alongside the group during a final rooftop performance. Preston then signed a deal with Apple Records as a solo artist, and his Harrison produced fourth album, That's the Way God Planned It, was released in August, yielding a UK hit with its title song.
Be so greedy when there's so much left.
He then joined the Beatles one more time to play on their Abbey Road album, and even after their 1970 split, he remained a close ally, especially to Harrison, whose solo albums frequently featured the keyboardist. The early 70s became a peak era for Preston, who after one more release on Apple signed a deal with A&M Records, releasing the 1971's I Wrote a Simple Song. One of his singles was Cabinet-led psych-funk instrumental Outer Space that became a major hit and won a Grammy for Best Pop Instrumental Performance. His next album, Music Is My Life, released in 1972, benefiting from another hit single, Will It Go Round in Circles.
Will it go round in circles?
And 1973's Everybody Likes Some Kind of Music. that spawned the R&B chart topper Space Race. Preston has forged a working relationship not only with ex-Beatles George Harrison and Ringo Starr, but with the Rolling Stones as well, who featured his talents liberally throughout the 70s on albums like Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup, and It's Only Rock and Roll. He also benefited as a songwriter when Joe Cocker made a 1975 hit of his ballad You Are So Beautiful. After wrapping up with A&M in 1977, he released A Whole New Thing. Now, Preston appeared alongside Peter Frampton on the Bee Gees in the much maligned Beatles themed movie Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Throughout his career, his stardom began waning as a solo artist. MOTOWN signed him and enjoyed a surprise hit with the Sarita Wright duet With You I'm Born Again.
Woman, don't you know with you I'm born again.
From his 1979 album Late at Night. After making a guest appearance on Sarita's 1980s release, the duo paired up for a joint album of duets in 1981 titled Billy Preston and Sarita. It would be his last solo album to chart. By the early 80s, Preston's career as a solo artist had ended, and his ongoing struggles with drug and alcohol addiction had killed his momentum of what he had left. His solo work had become sporadic and shifted the focus to doing session work with R&B artists such as Luther Vandross, Patti LaBelle, and Whitney Houston. His Beatles connection was revived when he joined the inaugural edition of Ringo Starr and his All-Stars band in 1989. Preston continued to struggle in the 90s as years of drug abuse and subsequently legal troubles took their toll. He made a gospel album and briefly teamed up with an Italian group named Novecento for the 1997's You and I. By the 2000s, Preston he made an appearance in the 2000 film Blues Brothers. He also joined Eric Clapton's band. Following the death of his late friend George Harrison in 2001, he paid tribute to him at the 2002 concert for George. The demand for section work for Preston picked up. He appeared on albums by Elton John, Joni Mitchell, Johnny Cash, and Neil Diamond. Hampering this career revival was a series of increasing dire health issues. His ongoing battle with kidney disease and subsequently having a kidney transplant failed to improve his situation. In spite of this, Preston continued to take work by making guest appearances on American Idol and doing sections with Ray Charles, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and a joint album by Clapton and J.J. Cale. Although the details did not become fully known to the general public until after his death, Preston he struggled throughout his whole life to cope with his homosexuality. In the lasting efforts of a traumatic XA that he suffered as a young boy, although his sexual orientation became known to his close friends and associates in the music world such as Keith Richards, Preston did not come out publicly as gay until just before his passing, partly because he felt that it conflicted with his deeply held religious beliefs and his lifetime association with the church. In his autobiography called Life, Keith Richards mentioned Preston's struggles with his homosexuality. In an interview for a 2010 BBC Radio 4 documentary on his life and career, Preston manager Joyce Moore revealed that after she began handling his affairs, Preston opened up to her about his lifelong trauma that he had suffered as a result of being SA'd as a child. Preston told Moore that at about the age of 9, after he and his mother had moved to Los Angeles from Houston to perform in a touring production of Amos and Andy, he was repeatedly abused by the touring company pianist. When Preston told his mother about the abuse, she did not believe him, and she failed to protect him. The abuse went on for the entire summer, and Preston was also later SA'd by a local pastor. Another traumatic incident happened, which reportedly affected Preston deeply, occurred in the early 70s. While he was engaged to actress and model Kathy Silva. At this time, Preston had become close friends with musician Sly Stone, and he made many contributions to Stone recordings during the period. According to Moore, Preston was devastated when he came home one day to find Stone in bed with his fiancée. According to Moore, her affair with Stone was a trigger that led Preston to stop having relationships with women. It was after this incident that he began using cocaine and having sex with men. And Moore had also stated that she saw his drug abuse as his way of coping with his internal conflicts that he felt about his sexual urges. In 1991, Preston checked into rehab. Now, while on probation for a drunk driving conviction in August of 1991, Preston he was arrested for SAing a 16-year-old Mexican boy after picking him up at a gathering point day labors. The boy told authorities that Preston picked him up and took him to his Malibu home where they smoked cocaine and pornographic photos and tried to assault him before he escaped. Preston was also charged with assault with a deadly weapon involving a man that he picked up to do work for his home the day before his arrest, involving the case with the little boy. After submitting to a drug test, Preston tested positive for cocaine. He entered a no contest plea to the cocaine and assault charges. The sex charges, however, included a misdemeanor charge of child molestation, and the other charges was dismissed. He was sentenced to 9 months at a rehab center and 3 months of house arrest. In 1992, Preston he was sentenced to 30 days in jail for violation of his probation during a drunk driving conviction. In 1997, Preston he was sentenced to 3 years in a California prison for cocaine possession in violation of his probation. He had been placed on a 3-year probation earlier that year after testing positive for cocaine. Under the terms, he agreed to spend 90 days in jail and remain drug-free. In prison in 1998, Preston was indicted for $1 million home insurance fraud scheme after setting a fire to his Los Angeles home. He pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against the other defendants involved in the scam. His plea called for 5 years of probation and 1 year in jail and $60,000 in restitution. The probation and jail time ran concurrent with his cocaine possession conviction. Altogether, he served 18 months out of his 4-year sentence, which he apparently became drug-free. Preston was nominated for 9 Grammy Awards and won 2. He won a Grammy Award for the Best Pop Instrumental for the song Out of Space at the 15th Annual Grammy Awards in 1973. He also won a Grammy Award for Album of the Year for his participation in the album The Concert for Bangladesh at the same ceremony. He was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021. Preston suffered from kidney disease in his later years, which was brought by high blood pressure. He received a kidney transplant in 2002, but his health continued to deteriorate. He had voluntarily entered a drug rehab clinic in Malibu, California, where he suffered pericarditis, leading to respiratory failure that left him in a coma on November 21st, 2005. Sadly, Preston passed away on June 6, 2006 at the age of 56. Now before we go, I have a question for you all. What is your favorite song from Billy Preston?